are back, and we're moving into our first conversation for this morning with representatives of the Statistical Institute of Belize. We're going to be talking about the labor force survey and the upcoming census. Here with us this morning, we have the Human Resource Manager, Agnes Noralez. In the middle, we have Dr. Leopold Perriott, who is the Director General. And on the end, we have Tiffany Vasquez, who's a statistician too. Good morning and welcome.
Good morning. Thanks for having us.
So quite a bit taking place, and I want to start off by being able to get some kind of an update as to the latest numbers that have been released by the SIB. And I was joking with you before we came on air that things like unemployment numbers are things that we don't pay attention to all the time, as at least the public, but when the Prime Minister mentions it in its speech, it gets some attention. So let's talk about what the trends have been like there before we get into the rest of the conversation.
The trends have been generally downwards for labor force. The last time we have numbers for was in April of this year. Mm-hmm. We've just finished out of the field for the September. We're almost out of the field for the September version of the labor force, and so we're going to have some updates. Okay, but having said that, the numbers, what we've been finding is that there is an increasing number of people who are underemployed. And I think we don't normally look at that. We just look at the unemployed. Yeah. And so, although we say that people are employed, on average, there's more people underemployed than there are unemployed. Yeah.
Now that's a specific terminology that you use. Can you explain to us what underemployment is?
In our case, underemployed means that you're working for 35 hours or less. That is underemployed. And this is an underestimation because some people are underemployed because they have a big qualifications and they're working at a menial job. Mm-hmm. Okay, so, and there are many of those people that have known for a fact. And so our estimates are kind of low with respect to underemployed. Yeah. And I think that is an important thing to notice, and we don't normally notice it. We look at the unemployed and think that we're doing well because the unemployment rate is down. But what's happening is that the underemployed rate is going up, and this doesn't signal very well at all.
Yeah. So when you hear statistics like that employment is low, but then you don't necessarily see the same thing reflected in the economic side.
This is right. When you go down to some area and you see people sitting around doing nothing, you say, but you people just said that the unemployment is 7 point something, but nobody working here. Yeah. Yeah. Well, they work, but they work 1 or 2 hours a week, no?
Yeah. And that was what I wanted to understand, because what are the markers to be counted as employed?
Okay, to be counted as employed, you have to work in the reference week 1 hour or more.
Is 1 hour for the entire week?
This is correct. But that is that's an international definition. Okay, so we go by these international definitions. Yeah. And really what it's measuring is measuring total unemployment. You're totally unemployed if you work less than 1 hour per week. Yeah. That's what it's saying. Okay, and sometimes people get worried about these definitions, but we're kind of constrained. We don't get up and make up these things in the morning and things.
You said this is the international standard that is used. But you also have access, I think, to some of the more detailed, and I say access in terms of it's in your mind, not ours, to the more detailed aspects of the unemployment rate itself. We've spoken before of the particular situation in Cayo. We can look at districts, and we can look at male and female, the proportions there. Tell me what you're seeing as of the last survey.
What I'm seeing is that the males are fairly well employed. Basically, they're the ones who have the lowest unemployment rates in the country. Mm-hmm. The females have a fairly high unemployment rate, but they're driving the downward trend because they're becoming more and more employed. They're taking up service jobs for elementary occupations, and so they are really driving the downward trend, to my mind. So that's what I see. So basically, the women are slowly but surely catching up with respect to employment.
How are things like entrepreneurship counted in the labor survey? If I make cakes, for example, for sale, and I stay home, is that employed or unemployed?
That is employed.
Okay.
That is employed. You sew in your house and things of this sort, or you make panades or something like this, you're employed.
Yeah.
Okay, if you sell people on the street or whatever, you're employed. It might just be that you're doing it for 6 hours a week. I don't know, something like that. No, in the morning you go to the schools or whatever you do and sell your ware. You're employed.
Yeah. Now,
Doesn't mean you have a big job. Just have to be employed. Have some kind of economic activity of 1 hour or more, and you're employed.
yeah, yeah, that definitely gives it a different
So
perspective.
that puts it in a totally different light.
Yeah. Where are we seeing the highest levels of employment?
Of employment.
Yeah. Or unemployment. It's easy to go the
Unemployment.
opposite, yeah.
I think the highest level would be in places like Stan Creek has a they've traditionally been fairly high. Toledo also has some high unemployment. Places like Belize, Corozal, Orange Walk, they're fairly low. They're like Corozal, Orange Walk, like 12 or so percent. Okay. Kaya is fairly low. Belize is fairly low. And as I said, the males are basically employed. They might not be doing 1 hour or 2 hours a week, but they're basically employed. And it's the females that are driving the downward trend, to my mind.
Okay. Now, it gives us an opportunity to discuss more the labor force survey itself, how often it's done, and just the range of questions that are asked to be able to get better clarity as to the situation.
Okay, so it's done twice a year.
Yes.
Is it April and September? April and September. And so basically what happens for the month of April, first week of April to the first week of May, we have this survey out in the field. And we target approximately, 2,600, 2,800 people. Basically, that's a target. A little bit small for my liking, but that's what we can afford, unfortunately. Okay. And having said that, because of the sample size, we can't ask all the questions we want. We don't get the amount of details we would really, really like to get from out of the labor force.
Yeah.
And so we ask things like we have to establish if the person is unemployed, of course, obviously. We try to establish what kind of job they're in, get an idea what kind of training they have, get an idea of what kind of pay they receive. Okay, so those are the kinds of things that we try to get out of the labor force. And so we can tell you that the person has been working, get these mainline indicators: underemployment, employment, unemployed, in the labor force, or not in the labor force, and things of that sort. Get an idea of what kind of education they have, what kind of training they have. It's important to know, get an idea of what people were trained for, if they have any at all.
So what's the difference between employed, unemployed, and in the labor force or not in the labor force?
Okay, so we first of all consider all those people 14 years or over. Okay, those are the people that's the
because legally that's the age you're allowed.
That's legally allowed. That's the population that are eligible.
Yes.
Okay, so 14 years and over. And then out of that, you can be employed, you can be unemployed, and then you can be not any of that. You can be just, I don't want to work. I'm a pensioner, I'm a student, I don't have a job, and I don't want to have a job. Okay? Okay, now the people in the labor force are the people who are unemployed and the people who are employed. That's the labor force. Those are the people who can contribute to the economic activity in the country. The
All
labor
those
force.
who are eligible to work.
Who
from 14.
Eligible to work. 14 has to be eligible to work, but you only have to have a job and want to work. Okay, so that's in the labor force. The labor force is a sector of people who can contribute to the economic activities of the country, and who are willing to do that.
If I choose not to work, then I am not a part of the labor force.
Then you're not a part of the labor force.
Okay.
That's what I want to do. I'll tell you.
That's what we all aspire to.
Okay, so you're not in the labor force, but then not only can it be people who are pensioners or people who are students. Some people have been, in my opinion, have been without job for so long that they give up. And they say, I don't mess with this stuff, man. This is a waste of my time. I might just sit home and drink my tea or whatever it is. And they're not in the labor force, and they're people not in the labor force. Okay? And this is where a big thing to my mind happens, is that when for example, the SIB puts in the news, we're hiring 1,000 people for the census. People come from all over applying, and some of them come from not in the labor force. Okay, but since if we advertise for 1,000 jobs and we get 5,000 applicants, that means that 4,000 people are going to be unemployed.
Yeah, because they want a job.
Because they want a job, they're looking for a job, and that means immediately that there's a spike in the unemployment rates.
Okay.
And this is what we see for every census. We see that for every census, there is a spike in the labor force in unemployment rates. And people say, what on earth are you people doing over there in SIB? You know, the census says it's 23% of what the number is, and in your labor force surveys, you're telling us it's 12 or it's 7 or it's 8 or it's 9%. What's going on here? Well, I think it's an intrinsic property of when you advertise jobs, people are going to flock to and people from all over the place, from in the labor force and from outside of the labor force. Going to come and looking for jobs, and so the number of people that are unemployed going to go up dramatically.
And
all kinds of
we've
things,
said
you know.
it all the time, and we'll say it again. This is where you need additional researchers to dive into
These kinds of things,
these numbers to understand why someone goes from not wanting to work to applying for a job. Just to understand more of the whys behind the numbers, but. This particular indicator that was released in April is the lowest on record for unemployment. And you mentioned the difference between employment, unemployment in the labor force, out of the labor force. Seasonal work is also included in this measure as well.
That's why we have two labor forces, one in April and one in September, because we want to capture seasonality. Okay.
So like peak season for the tourism.
Peak season tourism, peak season out in agriculture, for example.
Okay.
You know, in the down south in the banana area, there's a seasonal effect that happens. And so we capture. That's why we space it apart, and we have one in April, one in September, and so we capture the fluctuations.
Okay. Okay.
As a matter of fact, when you look at the numbers, you'd see for April unemployment rate would be what, 7.8, and we were expecting in September unemployment rate to be higher than that because there's a seasonal effect.
Because then they're no longer, it's the low season.
That's
so
right,
even if you're a hair braider, you won't perhaps be able to work. So you also look at the basic salaries that people receive.
Well, we ask them, and this is always a tricky question. People don't like to tell you how much money they make and stuff, and so we get an idea of the salary that people, the amount of money people make, and so there's an average. Well, it's a median. We do the median.
And there's a difference between median and average.
Yes, there's a difference between median and average. Median is a salary at which we have 50% have less salary than this and 50% have more salary. That's the median, okay? And so we pick that as a unit of measure. And it's a nice statistic. It gets people's attention. I don't know. It might be low.
So what is the median?
Yeah, it might be low.
No, what is the median salary from the latest indicator?
Can you remember? It's 2,000 or something? No. I don't remember.
It's about 2,000?
No, I think it's probably more than 2,000. I don't remember it.
2,000
I guess this
monthly.
must be age catching up with me, I suppose.
And do we see any sort of trends in terms of more people earning more or more people earning less? Since we spoke earlier about the numbers in terms of people who are underemployed, are there any significant things that have recently that have been happening in that sort of regard?
I don't know if we've done any studies on that, but my guess would be that you would see that the salary decreases a little bit, okay? Because and it just stands to reason. If there are more and more people being underemployed, they will get less money than the fully employed. So the economy can handle a certain amount of people at full employment, and we're not there at all. We have a lot of underemployed, and of course these people will be low-paying jobs, things of that sort, which of course drag the whole set of numbers down.
And what do you think is perhaps one of the statistics, specifically when it comes to the labor force survey, that you wish the public would perhaps pay more attention to? Maybe it stands out to you as researchers, and any one of you can answer, but that you wish people perhaps would pay attention to more, and maybe we try to understand at a deeper level.
My big concern is that not enough attention is paid to the underemployed. That is where I think the action is, as a matter of fact. And it caused a lot of confusion because people say, you people are crazy. When I walk down the street, I see people all over the place doing nothing. Okay? And then you tell me that we are unemployed. No, this looks like 40% or whatever the number they come up with. No?
Well, that's why the lowest record has been a bit difficult for people to digest.
Understand that number is if I was a politician, I could drive the unemployment rate down to any number I want by making available very short-term jobs, a lot of them, so that people can at least get to do something, 3-4 hours a week, and I could drive the unemployment rate down to any number I want. Okay.
Because it's only a
because
minimum.
the definition sets you up that kind of scenario. The definition tells you it's 1 hour or more. So if I can make jobs that offer you 6 hours per week, then I can make 10,000 jobs that do these kinds of things, and then you're in business.
But does the data released by SIB differentiate between how many hours people are working, like who's full-time employed and who's underemployed?
We asked this question in the labor force survey. There is a specific question that determines, 2 or 3 questions that determine how many hours you work in your main job, in your part-time job or whatever the job is.
Because full-time employment would be
35 hours and more.
Okay. And so you have the numbers as to how many people are actually working 35 hours or more, and those who are underemployed.
We never publish them, but we have those numbers.
Why aren't they published?
We haven't thought about it, as a matter of
Do you know what the number is for underemployment?
Yes, we have the numbers for underemployment. We track the numbers for underemployment.
So what was the last survey for underemployment, the last result?
I don't remember the exact number, but the percentage of people who are underemployed is higher than the people who are unemployed. So it's much higher.
Can
So
you,
there are more
can you
people.
explain that further? I'm not sure I'm understanding
Remember,
it clearly.
the underemployed are employed people. They're being employed by definition. Okay.
Yeah.
And if you take the percentage of those with respect to the total number of people employed, it's a bigger number. It's a much bigger number than the people who are unemployed.
Okay, I understand.
Okay.
So you're saying there are more people working less than 35 hours a week
Than there are
people who are not
unemployed.
working.
This is correct.
Not working and looking for a job.
We're looking for a job. This is correct.
Wow. Okay.
It's going to put things in perspective a little better, you see. So, but normally people don't think about it. They say unemployment rates, and then they stop right there.
Yeah.
But that is not the whole story at all.
See, because when I think of this further, and it goes back to another number that we were discussing, which is that median salary, which is kind of like that middle number between what most people, not all people, but most people are making. If someone is working 1 hour, 2 hours a week, and you have that added into your salary, the information that you're gathering on salary, means that you'll have some pretty low markers there as well. You can only make so much, and if it's minimum wage, even more so.
Yeah, this is correct. Somebody works for 2 hours chopping grass or whatever it is, and they make what? I don't know how much they make for grass is chopping these days, $40, $50, something like this, you know. That's it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Valid point. Well, Dr. Perriott, are there people who are looking into finding out more, understanding more with this problem of underemployment? I know you offer the data to people who want to use it.
I don't know of anybody who's actually looking at this particular thing. And this is probably a little beef of my own, no? That's I think that if I was unemployed, I could probably look at.
and then that leaves me to say something that won't sound so great. We look forward to when you're unemployed. Okay, why? Because in other countries, people would be looking deeper into this issue.
We're hoping that we can interest people like the universities and researchers to point their students towards our data in general, to do research projects, and that's the idea. I know we've had some traction with some people abroad, and UB is looking very, very closely at how to institute this in their programs. We launched with our assistants and IDB assistants, we launched a bachelor's degree in statistics over at University of Belize, and that's one of the things that they're going to be doing, is to have their people do an intern attachment.
Okay.
And so that's the idea, is to get people to be interested. It takes a little while for people to really get into get into the idea that we have the data. The data is there, and all they have to do is come and access it, and they can do their research, whatever it is they want to do.
Yeah.
And this is I think this is probably the way to go. We don't have the manpower and we're not capable of doing that right now. We're up to our eyeballs in all kinds of mischief, and to do that, we don't have the capacity at this time.
Yeah. You know, clearly a research institute would be great
nice,
here, to look and understand more. Because even with the issue with the underemployment that you're talking about, I mean, the question, and I don't know if you can answer it, but are people choosing to work only 2 hours for the week, or 4 hours, or 6 hours? Or is it a matter of that's all that's available?
A lot of the case, that's all that's available. A lot of the case, they tell you on the form that this is a full-time occupation they have, and they're talking about 15, 16 hours a week.
Okay.
That's the job.
Okay.
Okay.
That's the only job they
That's
can
the
get.
only job they got.
Yeah.
See, and so we see that these comments very frequently in the questionnaire.
Yeah.
There are a few people who just want to do the job and thing.
Yeah.
Like myself.
Like the ones who may be interested in the census and participating.
Yeah, like that. You know, for
census.
example, if we're running the census, and a retired teacher might be interested in getting her hand in or something like this, and we're open to this situation where we can probably hire this person for, and those are very competent and highly trained people, and so that's the people we would like to really attract for our positions.
Okay. And so you said you're just wrapping up the September labor force survey.
This is correct.
When can we expect those results?
We should expect that we're going to have our really advanced release calendar tells us the results come out in November, and so we're expecting the last Wednesday in November to have the press releases for this particular thing, and so. We take a month. We do it in a month's time and get things organized and write the reports and what have you.
No, we appreciate you bringing clarity to and the labor force survey and the information coming out is produced twice a year. Very often you come here and you discuss with us. So it is public information. It's just that sometimes we don't pay attention to it until someone says it's the lowest on record ever. Then we want to understand more.
People don't make enough use of our website. Our website, sib.org.bz, has this information in great detail. So any tabular information you need is in there. The press releases are in there. Everything is in the website, and so we encourage people to visit us.
Just out of curiosity, if you'd like.
Just out of curiosity, let's see what happens. If people talking about this, let's see what they're really talking about.
I always point people to SIB's website when they start talking about the 2 female to every male in Belize, which is the biggest misconception, biggest outright lie that exists. And our new census perhaps will tell us more. Let's move into that conversation. We are preparing for Census 2020.
Oh, are we ever preparing for Census 2020? We've been preparing from 2016. We've been at it. Yeah. And but it's been mostly planning and stuff like that. Now we're starting the execution phase. Okay, so we're really picking up momentum to get this thing going. And so right now we're in the middle of mapping the entire country. We basically are done mapping the urban areas. And we have some satellite imagery from Mexico, and so we're mapping we're going to get deep into mapping the rural areas. I'm going to do as much of that as possible before before time overtakes us.
Yeah. So, the census is perhaps the most important data gathering exercise that any country will undertake. It's important,
most expensive, most detailed for us.
Yeah.
It allows us to capture indicators that we not normally get otherwise. Okay, and it's baseline information, so it can be very contentious as what goes in there, because we don't want to put stuff that you can obtain from other sources, basically.
And that's
baseline data.
That's what's happening with this latest census. You have added some additional information that you will be accessing. A part of that is actually looking at exactly where people are located. You talk of the mapping. If we can explain that further. Technology now allows us to do this.
All kinds of neat stuff, I tell you.
Yeah.
The idea of mapping is that if we can now, that allows us to disseminate information at a detailed level. So, for example, if we calculated poverty, for example, okay, we can link those numbers to the maps, and we can tell you in this particular area there's a problem, or over here there's an issue, or this part doing very well, as the case might be. I always tell my people we need to make our statistics relevant to the politicians. So can we give them and tell them in their constituent where the pockets are, precisely. And so that what allows us to do. For education or health, where precisely do you need to put your hospitals? What are the areas that have problems? And so the GIS data allows us to disseminate at very detailed level.
Yeah.
And it's visual. And we have a technical cooperation agreement with the IDB, and hopefully they promise to bring some Koreans from Statistics Korea to assist us in producing interactive maps. So we're doing all kinds of bizarre things, but they're going to be interesting.
And with all of this extra detail or added detail that you are adding to the collection of this data, what are some of the examples of the data that you collect that perhaps you wouldn't do otherwise, or you wouldn't see, because you had said that during this exercise you get some parameters that you don't normally look at?
Yeah, well, the thing to remember is that the questions have to be to allow us to compare with other regions. And so about 80% of the questions basically are questions that come from CARICOM, from that point of view. And so there's a comparison issue that has to be done, okay? There are some issues, for example, we've vocalized and certainly intend to do a poverty index, a multidimensional poverty index. And normally...
You can tell us that one in English.
How to estimate poverty using different things like education. Are you deprived in education? Are you deprived by health? Are you deprived in the structure of your buildings? Are you deprived because of labor?
Okay.
Okay? And when you combine these together,
so recognizing where they lack.
Precisely. So it's a very precise kind of activity. You can tell people here what happened in this area. Education ain't doing too well. Okay, or in this area is a health issue. Okay, so you can really look at it in detail when you combine the maps. Don't look at it in detail where the deprivation exists.
Okay.
Okay.
That's interesting.
So the idea. The idea then is that we had to add a few questions to facilitate this. Okay, but I think it's important enough. And this can be compared to international ways of collecting poverty, because that's the way it's done internationally. Okay, so and that's the idea behind it.
I think
you have to compare it.
We've been talking. The only number we use is clearly from the last census, which was
There was something like that, some numbers, and then of course it's a
and
number
that's
for
kind
debate.
of just a line, and anyone who falls under it,
This is correct.
that would be considered the people who are living in poverty.
This is correct.
So what will happen with this new census is that we'll have even more detailed information.
We have a great amount. We're still going to do the poverty line one, because we've just finished a household budgetary survey that will allow us to look at detail and to see what people spend, how much they can afford, things of that sort, and then make an estimate of where that line is and how many people fall below or above, or what the case might be. So we can still do that, but then we'll have two means of assessing the issue of poverty.
So what other data are we looking for? Clearly we want population, right?
Yeah,
That's
population.
the first and number one that we need from the census, which is why you tell people be counted, no?
Yeah, count me in.
Count me in, thank you.
Count me in, yes.
You're looking at gender, you're looking at marital status, kind of the basic information that you fill out in any form, right?
Marital status, we're looking for that. We're looking for your educational levels. Okay, we're looking at some things on health. We're looking at how you live, the structure in which you live, what kind of stuff do you live in, what kind of stuff you have. You have maybe a TV, maybe you don't. You might have a...
How many fans you have?
Well, I don't know if you ask how many fans you have, but that's the idea.
Yeah,
That's the idea, right? The idea is to establish the population and put them in sectors to find out how well off they are. Basically, that's what it is. Okay. Look at immigration, migration. We're looking at languages. There's a lot of things.
Ethnicity.
Ethnicity.
That's self-reported, though.
Yeah, of course. And then religious affiliations, we're looking at that. So the basic ones we're looking at.
Yeah.
And of course, we're trying to determine the employment status, how the employment status looks. We've been advised by the ILO that it isn't exactly right to do main labor statistics using the census, but we've done it for the last, I don't know how many umpteen years, and so if comparisons, we just keep on doing it.
Yeah. Now, there's a lot of sensitive information. Some of it is basic, but there's a lot of sensitive information
It's all
as
sensitive
well.
information.
So how do you work to ensure that people, report, but report also accurately? Tiffany, you want to jump in here? Sorry? About how you work to ensure...
She thinks I've been talking too much.
No. Just, how you work to ensure that the information as it is recorded is most accurate? Is it in the training of the persons involved?
All right, well, we do extensive trainings.
Yeah.
We make sure that before the field staff, they go into the field, we make sure that they're properly trained. But at the end of the day, we also do a lot of field checks. And we're out in the field. We're out in the field, we have field supervisors, and we're out there, and we have to ensure that the data is accurate. So yes, we do trust our interviewers, but field staff and headquarters staff would go out into the field, and they would ensure the accuracy of the data as well.
Okay.
It's not only checking the data by the forms, it's making spot interviews, independent of what the interviewers are doing.
Oh, you do a verification?
Yes,
Oh, yes,
a verification.
you better believe it.
It's a verification.
That
And
takes
so
a very willing participant to do it twice.
Oh yeah, they're very patient
Yes.
people. They're very patient people. And so they'll be we take a certain percentage and say this is the 5% or whatever the number is that's going to be rechecked.
Okay.
And this is independent of what the interviewer is doing, without their knowledge.
And that's a standard
That's a
for
standard
all
procedure.
For all the surveys, yeah.
So, as you've said, you've been working on preparing for the actual collection of data for quite a while. It's a very long process, which is why it's done every 10 years, and also very expensive. So, you have put together the questionnaire, right?
Yeah.
And tell me what other steps have been taken and where we are now in the process.
Well, the first step was to put together topics that we're going to be looking at.
Okay.
Okay. The first steps are put together topics, and then there's a legal issue. Because this is a legal exercise. And so there's a Census Act, there's a census order, it has to be organized. Okay? And then the mapping exercise is a huge exercise. The issue
That's
of
new. That's the first time you're doing that. The mapping.
yeah, this is the first time we're doing
actual-
that.
Yeah.
The advertisements, or jingle, all of this stuff has to be organized. The
Yeah.
jingle, the videos that we take, and that has to be done. So we have to plan how we're going to make what we're doing known to the public.
Okay.
And so you'll be hearing much more from us in a while, in a very, very short while, because we're ramping up now to all this thing, okay?
Yeah.
And then there's a recruitment. We have to recruit suitable people to conduct this. You want to jump in?
Yeah,
We
sure.
have a
That's
recruitment
Agnes here.
person here, you know?
Agnes is trying to make sure that the best people will apply
Yes,
to
definitely,
participate.
Definitely. Earlier this year, in April of this year, we launched our recruitment campaign. The census definitely is one of the largest mobilization of civilian workforce that the SIB does every 10 years. So definitely we need competent, reliable temporary staff to help us count every man, woman, and child in Belize. So some of the strategies that we've been employing is definitely putting ourselves out there, reaching people, going to the various communities, letting them know that census is coming and we have jobs. We will have offices across the country, and we have positions available for field supervisors, interviewers, editor coders, drivers. I hope I didn't miss anybody. Yes, and
IT persons?
Oh, and the IT person and the administrative assistant, because we'll have offices throughout the country.
Okay.
We need over 900 persons.
Wow.
And yeah, it's an enormous undertaking, but you bet sure we will be out there and we will get the persons that we need. One of the strategies that we've employed this time around is having an online application. So persons can visit our website and fill out an online application. And there's also a tutorial there on the website that enables people to go through the process if they're having any challenges, and they can also call us at our office. We have a WhatsApp number that they can reach us to ask us various questions. So far the recruitment campaign is going good, and we want to let the public know that they can meet us at the various activities that we have, and they can visit our website to see which area we will be in.
And there's so many different jobs or different skill sets that are required
Yes,
as well.
definitely.
Yeah.
Yes, definitely. For a field supervisor, because that person basically manages the field work in the field. So at that level, we're looking at somebody at least with an associate degree. Dr. P earlier spoke about retired persons like teachers. You know, we know these persons are very skilled in terms of supervisory. So we're looking at them also. For the IT technician, of course, an associate in computer science, because of course whatever challenges we have with the field relative, because we are collecting data with tablets. So, you know, these people will be on the ground to ensure that they can troubleshoot whatever problems that occur in the field. So yeah, like Doc said earlier, we're doing a lot of things, and we're definitely amped up in terms of the recruitment campaign.
Is there a deadline for applying?
There definitely is a deadline. The November 30th is the deadline for application. And that's because there is a shortlisting process that has to take place, and then we begin interviewing in January. So the entire month of January will be across the country interviewing persons for these positions. And they have to be, persons would need to be available as of April 2020, because we start training at that time, actually March of 2020, because the training starts and then we go officially into the field on May 12, 2020.
Okay.
Yes.
And you said that the recruitment process has been going well.
Yes.
Has there been a particular job or something that people are most interested in so far?
Yeah, we've seen the numbers are high in the interviewer positions. And I guess that's because the minimum qualification there is a high school diploma.
Okay.
Yeah, so that would be, and also I've seen some increase in the administrative assistant position also. We'll only need 9 persons, but we have a great amount of applications
So it's,
in that area.
so it's kind of competitive.
It is, definitely, definitely. Yes.
So those applications are currently available online.
Online, there's an application form available online, and what we're presently doing, you know, because it is not everybody that may have access to internet. So what we're doing right now, we're partnering with various organizations across the country to ensure that we have the paper form available, that they could go and just fill out the forms and then they'll get that to us. So we'll have that up on our website as soon as that information is available, at least by next week. Yeah, because we want to ensure we reach everybody.
You know, I think it's a great opportunity for people to, first of all, get some work.
Yes.
But also, I'm sure it must be interesting to participate in the census as well.
It's a lifetime experience.
I like the excitement on your face when you say that, Doc. So we have tested the questionnaire. That's what I was asking, right?
Yes, we have we have done a small project, a small pilot on the questionnaire to determine whether people understand the questions at all, how long it takes to conduct this thing, you know, simple things like that.
Okay.
But then we plan to do a thorough test of the entire census process, because we're writing up all kinds of applications to keep quality under check, to keep the whole process in control, paying people, you know, HR application, and so we're going to test the whole of that in November. A thorough check of the whole census process.
Yeah.
And then after we've done that, we'll be with people that Agnes would have identified.
Yeah.
We'll go into training in March of next year. And so we have to train people for a couple of months. And then we hit the field May the 12th.
May 12th, that's the kickoff of the
Yes.
census. All right, so there's a lot coming up as well.
Yes.
There's a lot
Most
to be
importantly,
done.
people know that they can apply
Yes.
to work along with the census starting next March.
Yes.
And a range of jobs available there. And, you know, I want to say thank you for coming in and clarifying some of the information from the labor force survey. I think you definitely put it into perspective, and we can understand and appreciate more what the data actually says. And thank you for coming in.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
We're going to go ahead and take a
you.
break. And when we come back, we'll find out the new elderly numbers in the next census, right? Right?
That's me, right?
But I'm pretty sure our next guest will know more about that too. World Day for Elderly Persons comes up next week, and we're going to be talking about some specific health issues affecting the elderly. That's coming up after the break, so stay tuned.